Welcome to another rant, another episode of me slightly losing my mind as a 21-year-old who is starting to uncover quite a lot of things that I suppose I've not been that aware of when I was younger. I wasn't aware of how much my life was being controlled by trauma or subconscious behaviors that are rooted in trauma or just a coping mechanism of some sorts. So, here's another entry where this time I will be speaking about intellect. How much this world prioritizes intellect over anything else, in terms of if you want to be someone that succeeds, not just, have an average life with an average income, but you actually want to be able to continue to grow nonstop. It seems as though this world is only, or that kind of world is only guaranteed for people that have been at an advantage because of their IQ from the very beginning. And the people that don't have it, well, they're just not really cut out for it. They're not cut out for greatness. So this is something that has bothered me almost my entire life, and I kind of spoke about it here. So this is my diary entry for today. I have officially turned in my last assignment of the semester, and the aftermath of it came as unexpected. See, all these past weeks I had been crying about desperately wanting to get the assignments done and over with, and yet this feeling that I must continue to keep myself busy, especially through productivity, only kept growing louder and louder by the minute as I tried to sit in my room and kept thinking, now what? After having deleted Instagram and growing bored, after seeing a few video commentaries on YouTube on the current state of the world, culturally speaking, I just didn't want to nor really know how to sit with such boredom. I suppose it's incredibly challenging to simply sit in that boredom after running around like crazy for the past 3 months ever since I came back to uni, literally nonstop. Although I know I have so much more growth to go through, I also often feel like I've reached a level of self-awareness where the alone time isn't necessarily even helping me come to new understandings or epiphanies about myself anymore, but instead I just sort of spiral into a marination of all of the ways in which existence can feel unbearable due to the thousands of directions I feel like I'm constantly getting pulled in. I just spiral into even more overthinking of feeling like time is running out like quicksand, and that I don't want to be another individual feeding the machine, and yet there is so much that I want to do and see, which requires money, which requires hard work and the right connections, which constantly exhausts my battery and drives me further away from my essence. But I also don't want to stay stuck in one place with the same people and the same job for most of my life post-grad, so I'm doing all of these things to hopefully try to secure a good future for myself, but I feel like I'm destroying myself in the process because I'm doing so many things against my nature, perhaps beyond my competence. And although a huge reason behind all of this is to simply help anyone in any way I can, a big reason for it still stemmed in massive deep-rooted insecurity and fear. Fear that I went through everything I went through, that I worked so hard, that all the setbacks and pain could be all for nothing, that if something great doesn't come out of it all, then all of these years spent thinking I was meant for something greater, all those years I spent wondering what was so different about me that I was always quite socially isolated, at least I felt like it, that none of it could have actually meant anything. I am terrified of being average and having an average life because I've seen the cages that it places people in, and I hate cages, and yet I rack up on all of these tasks, societies, activities. At what cost? Why can't I simply be smart enough, talented enough? Why must I always have to claw my way to everything? They say that the job you should take is one where you get to do the one thing that you do even if no one paid you, which for me is likely writing, but I'm simply an amateur. I journal, sometimes write basic proses and poetry that millions of others have already expressed in better language and lexicon, and even then it's clear by now that sooner or later I get bored of literally nearly everything I've ever liked, been obsessed with, adored, and yet sometimes I also desire routine and familiarity, though not as often. So when you exist in such a chaotic way, but you wish to enjoy life to the maximum, what can you possibly do? A career where you wouldn't ever have to worry about counting money, while also being as free as possible, while not exploiting others. It is stupid, absolutely bizarre that I even have to choose when all of us have the same short lives to experience, and then we'll all be gone, just like that. Yet we place all of this importance on absolute crap. Money is the only way, besides connections, that I know can give you access to any part of life you'd like to experience, whether it's travel, good food, investing in new hobbies, fun ways to express yourself through fashion, beautiful social events such as concerts, ballet, endless pursuit of education, knowledge, etc. So of course, I'm constantly freaking out about how I could possibly make money, have continued streams of income to fund this life of freedom I wish to have and share with others while doing the things I love on my own schedule, be my own boss without hurting anyone in the process. Am I only meant to get as far as getting a bachelor's in my beautiful Oxford, only getting one lick of what life could be like at my greatest potential, only to spend my remaining life living an average life or staying around the same level? Another hog in the machine? What if every single part of me refuses that? But I don't want to live on the streets, nor do I want to destroy myself in the pursuit of greatness. What then? Can someone give me the formula? Because right now, nothing seems quite assuring. Did me being in Oxford, surrounded by all of that brilliance, hope, inspiration, opportunities, was it all just to tease me? Surely the universe, my greatest self, would be kinder, more reasonable than that. And yet, no matter how hard I try, I feel like a complete imposter, a fool, a clown trying to convince myself that I'm capable of more, that I'm special, even though I've never been considered the gifted child. By my parents, sure, by a few teachers, sure, but I was more so considered hardworking and ambitious than necessarily an original thinker. Clear signs of high intellect, which is obviously with prestigious universities would be more willing to take a risk on. And yet, I don't know how to let go of this idea that if I could just work hard enough, become obsessed, that I might just prove to everyone that it is still possible to make it, despite. I just can't wrap my head around the idea that this was the IQ I was born with, and that there's nothing I can do about it, but just accept it. It's not like half of these jobs ask for you to partake in an examination to test for your IQ. It's not like they essentially tell you that if you don't have it, you're good for nothing, but to stare at a computer screen for 9 hours a day, 5 times a week, for 30 to 40 years. How am I to feel about outraged and obsessed with improving my IQ? How the hell do I just accept that something I have no control over could dictate which rooms I am and am not allowed in? This endless loop of despair and obsession of chasing anything that validates that I am more than the intellect I'm stuck with is by far the leading center of constant disruption in my life. It is the shadow that follows me absolutely everywhere I go. My life, so much of my life, has been spent performing to be smarter, better, more talented than I likely am at my core. I pay attention to nearly every word I use, my posture, the pauses between each sentence, how I've messed up multiple times in this video, how I adjust to my own slip-ups, some of the activities I engage in. My journal, diary, is the only place where I allow myself to be imperfect. But even then, sometimes I'll catch myself writing to an invisible audience and articulating myself more than necessary. This feeling of incompetence these last 15 plus years isn't even to do with me just not recognizing some inherent greatness about me, which my family always tells me. It is literally about the fact that none of those standardized tests I ever took revealed some type of hidden IQ in me. I wasn't one of those kids that the teachers recognized signs of success in. I was a student that played by the rules, that took advantage of tutoring lessons after class to have the teachers explain to me the concepts I didn't understand. I succeeded through relentless hard work, perfectionism, and memorization. Not because I had a unique way of solving problems or an excellent visual memory. I was a simple girl who likely developed anxiety because of how ridiculously I pushed myself and punished myself anytime I got anything but close to perfection, if not perfection. And now I'm in an institution where hard work alone isn't good enough, where you must engage in critical thought, and though I completely agree with such a necessity and find it a nice challenge, it's heartbreaking when you begin to doubt if you'll ever actually be good enough for greatness, when you realize that you're so behind on possessing so many skills that others seem to naturally possess. Not a single person in my blood family is an academic. I'm not even sure anyone has high intellect, and I feel hopeless because the desire is there, the passion is there, the fascination, the curiosity, the hard work, but how far can all of that really take you if your mind might be stuck in a permanent way of functioning in a world that prioritizes a very specific group of people? What am I to do then? I don't want my life to be limited by my intellect or mental health. It is too short to be limited by anything. My last hope to figuring out how to continue to flow without losing my mind is staying with my godmother, away from everything and everyone, for a few weeks. Because constantly running away from myself by using productivity as a distraction is really beginning to take a toll on me, and I am at risk for burnout, if I'm not already there. You know what I find to be one of the most frustrating things of them all? When your mind is like a labyrinth of non-stop cars, dozens and dozens of cars racing around in mazes, and you get all of these thoughts, ideas in your head of desiring to learn about this and that and the third, and having this business idea or writing a book about this, but when it comes to actually taking action, out of a sudden you feel paralyzed, bored out of your mind, because you just want to fast forward to the finished product than learning how to enjoy the journey or process of becoming. And the amount of patience, trial and error, time and energy such projects require feel like a form of mild, slow torture. So you sit there feeling like you're at war between inner desires, fire, and a mind that is conditioned through feedback loops to look at time-consuming but long-term rewarding tasks as a threat. And when you push yourself anyways, it's only a matter of time until your nervous system perceives it all as too much from the constant fight or flight it has to be in, since you can only get crap done, it seems, when it is days if not hours before you must complete that task, so you have no choice but to run on adrenaline, and it slowly begins to get worn out and enter burnout. So I suppose the better comparison is a sort of war between my mind and nervous system, and vice versa and interconnectingly. How exhausting! Why can't I simply function like a healthy human being, one that can handle it all? What room is there in this world for people like me? Full of potential, but a screwed nervous system and mind. How ironic. All of this potential that feels like it's simultaneously kept locked in a constraining box, even though I cannot stand constraints. Tell me, what am I to do? What am I to do when I live in constant instability? So, what am I to do? Has anyone figured it out? Has anyone figured it out when your mind can't stop racing with ideas and desires, and you refuse to settle for a life that you don't deserve? For a life where you don't get to be free, you don't get to make your own decisions whenever you want, but at the same time, you have these constraints. Like, you can't do anything about your intellect. You are stuck with the intellect you're stuck with. You can't just make your brain suddenly be amazing at solving problems or making quicker decisions, making more effective decisions. You just have to work with what you have. So what do you do then? Because if I was naturally brilliant, if I was naturally a highly intellectual person, then obviously I wouldn't have all this fuss about it. Not to this extent, because I would know that my intellect would carry me. But what do you do when it's kind of just been hard work that's carried you this far, and out of a sudden that hard work, it's not really working anymore? In the real world, you actually do have to be able to critically think and use creative solutions if you want to break out of the box, if you want to come up with something new, be innovative, get far enough. But at the same time, you can't stand this ladder of success. You can't stand the concept of it. You think it's ridiculous because you recognize how short life is and how much more time and energy we should be investing in the things that are actually meaningful for us and that actually fulfill our souls or just us. So you don't want to spend your life putting on masks just for the sake of success. But you don't really necessarily have the intellect to carry you that far either. But you don't have that energy anymore to destroy yourself, destroy your nervous system in the pursuit of this greatness. What do you do? I can't stop thinking about this because I'm already halfway through my university degree. I only have another half to go, and then I'm just expected to figure it out, to just enter the job market. I've worked since I've been 16 years old. I know what it's like. It's horrible. It destroys you over time. It's miserable to have to work for someone, to have to exchange your precious time that you could instead be using for the things that you find interesting, fascinating, to learn, to invest in new hobbies. Instead, you have to exchange your very, very, very finite life for some company against your will. Because if we all could just choose to not work, I'm sure a majority of us would not work. And every single part of me refuses to be part of the system, even though I know I kind of am, just by going to university. But at the same time, I picked up so many things just by going to university that I wouldn't have picked up on otherwise. best thing is I love learning. I find everything fascinating. I don't think there's a single subject or area of knowledge that if someone didn't explain to me kind of in more detail the different dimensions of it, that I couldn't end up finding it fascinating. Like, for example, I used to think, oh my gosh, I will never care for business or economics. That stuff is so boring. And just over the last year, by watching literally one man very nicely explain some concepts of economics, I started to find it fascinating. And now I honestly don't mind learning more about it. So I love learning. If I could go to university for a majority of my life instead of working, I would. Just so I can gather all this knowledge and be able to talk to so many fascinating people about it and be able to expand my mind. I would rather do that than to just exchange my hours of this short life for a company that doesn't care about me, that just cares about profit. And so I'm just in this constant state of crisis, freaking out, anxiety, because I recognize that everything that I do now, I have to be very smart about it. I have to be very clever about it. But at the same time, I don't feel like it's natural for me to be very strategic about everything. Like, okay, I'm picking up on these societies. I am going to try to expand my circle to these people. I'm going to try to pick up on this hobby because those are hobbies of a highly successful person. It doesn't feel natural for me. That's not what I actually desire. That's not what my heart actually desires. What my heart actually desires, I've made myself such a social butterfly this year, but in reality, I'm not even. It's exhausting. I put on a mask everywhere I go. I don't actually enjoy talking to so many people all the time. I'm very specific. Deep at my core, I'm actually very specific with the kind of people that I want to engage in. And if I don't want to engage with you, I'm not going to engage with you. But because I'm part of so many things and societies and clubs and whatever, I have to be social. I have to communicate. I have to expand my circle. I can't just make those people feel like they're not welcome. But I don't enjoy it because at the end of the day, it feels like it goes against my nature. It feels like I'm doing something for some kind of grander purpose, but it's kind of taking me further and further away from who I am at my core. And it's making me miserable because at the end of the day, when nighttime comes and I sit there with all of my thoughts and all my feelings, I feel a void. Because it's not like I'm actually making any genuine connections, even through being such a social butterfly. It's all surface level at the end of the day. And it's either I'm too much for people or I'm not enough for people. And I'm sick of it. And I don't really know how to navigate this because I know that there are a lot of people that think you just need to pick one or the other. You just need to settle. You just need to accept this is life. But it's so serious for me that I would rather not be here. I would rather not exist than to ever have to put myself through these 9-to-5 jobs that I have been working under since 16 years old. And once you reach a certain level of exposure to what life could be like, which is what I mentioned in that entrance, what life could be like at success, what we perceive to be success, higher status, where you don't have to worry about anything. You can do whatever you'd like. You can send your kids off to the richest schools. You can travel whenever you want. You have complete freedom and choice over your time, which every single one of us should have, because we are all only given this one life. It's not fair that the system tries to convince us that somehow the family that we're born into, the place that we're born in, that somehow defines what we deserve and what we don't deserve, what we can dream of and what we shouldn't dream of. That's absurd. every single one of us should be able to make decisions for our lives, what we choose to do with our time, with this very short life. So because I'm so serious about this, passionate about this, but at the same time I recognize the kind of constraints that I'm dealing with, because my whole life, well, okay, not my whole life, not since I've been a toddler, but I would say since I was 7, 8 years old, the first time that I started to feel very incompetent, not as good as my fellow peers, not getting the same grades, not being as good at math as my classmates, seeing them staying after class, taking up extra lessons of math because that's how good they were, while I was doing horribly at it. Since then, I have been in this continuous loop, non-stop drive to just try to prove myself and an imaginary audience wrong. That there is no such thing as a certain level of intelligence stopping you from achieving greatness. Most of my life, I have tried to prove this wrong. I keep thinking, if I just work hard enough, if I just involve myself enough, if I just take up enough skills and experience, then surely that will outweigh the intellect. But it's destroying me in the process, destroying my nervous system, because if I don't do perfectly on something, if I don't spend relentless time and hours stressing over every single detail of an assignment to be handed in perfectly, and even if I do that, and then in the end I don't end up getting the grade that I expected, I spiral and I can't help but spiral because of how much time and energy I invested in it. And yet again, it like mirrors to me that it doesn't matter how hard I try, it doesn't matter how much effort I put into it, doesn't matter the amount of skills I pick up, I'm stuck with what I'm stuck with up here. And there's nothing I can do about it but just accept it, even though, again, absolutely every single part of me refuses to just be another individual feeding the machine. I refuse, period. So, what can you do? If anyone has any tips, please comment below. If you're someone that has an average IQ, you've never been necessarily gifted, but you still somehow managed to break loose, how did you do it? How did you do it without losing your mind? Yeah, well, that's all for this rant, this entry. I love you all, and I hope you have a beautiful day, angels.